Hello everybody, welcome back to episode 14 of the Atlanta Sports Podcast. My name is Frankie Malouf, and today I'm running alone once again as Luke cannot be with us. We're going to start off the day with an interview with Steve Epstein, the founder of Atlanta Baseball Talk. But first I want to thank you for finding us, whether it be on our website, atlantasportspodcast.com, or on Twitter at ATL Sportscast. You can also find us on Google+, just search the Atlanta Sports Podcast. And we're also in all the major directories, whether it be in iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play, or even SoundCloud. And we also have a YouTube channel, so if you would not mind giving us a rating and review, tell us how we're doing. You can also send us a comment through our website. Once again, it's atlantasportspodcast.com. So we're going to start off with an interview. The Braves, they won today, the last game in Turner Field. They beat the Tigers 1-0, so it was a good day for the Braves. Now I'm very happy to be joined by Steve Epstein from Atlanta Baseball Talk. And Steve, we're glad to have you with us today.
Yeah, thanks. Happy to be here.
So we're going to get started. Obviously, Dansby Swanson's been the story for the past few weeks. He joined the Braves, I think it was August 17th maybe. What do you think of his big league debut?
Well, I think it's been pretty good, right? I mean, the concern was he getting tired by the end of this, longest season in his professional career, and was it going to be too early, and, would the cons outweigh the pros? But all he's done is hit over 300 and, have a decent on-base percentage, and actually, what's been surprising is he's had a few errors in the field, but, I mean, no one's really worried about his fielding long-term. It was the hitting that I think would be the concern this year, and he has certainly proven so far that he can handle major league pitching. I think it's been, beyond successful so far.
Would you have done anything differently? Like, would you have tried to bring up somebody else instead?
No, I mean, I think that Dansby was the guy to bring up. I know that Ozzie Albies had better numbers in the minors than Dansby, but Ozzie's only 19 years old, right? Dansby had gone through Vanderbilt and is 3 or 4 years older than Ozzie. I mean, I think that Dansby was the obvious choice right now.
So the Braves have been on a winning streak recently, which is a bit surprising. What's the reason for this? Is it because of Dansby and the other recent moves the Braves have made?
Well, I think it's been a number of factors. Freddie has been probably the biggest one. I mean, he's just been on fire. Inciarte has been unbelievable at the top of the lineup. Adonis Garcia has been unbelievable at the top of the lineup. Since Matt Kemp has come, which was August 2nd, the team is 5th in runs in the majors. I mean, just a lot of things clicked. I know that the strict Sabre folks would say that Kemp's contribution doesn't really matter, but all the players, all the interviews with the players talk about how Kemp's presence has lengthened the lineup and the pitches are better and the protection behind Freddie. And it's kind of hard to argue with because the numbers, the runs scored per game sort of prove it out since August. And it's certainly not been the starting pitching because the starting pitching has been terrible. I mean, imagine what kind of record the Braves would have if they had any starting pitching since August.
Right. So what prospects do you think are part of the next wave that are going to come up, whether it be at the very tail end of this year or probably we'll see more next year in opening day?
Yeah, I don't know that we're going to see anybody opening day that we don't see now. I mean, they're giving Rio Ruiz a chance, but I don't think he's going to unseat Adonis. I think that Adonis is going to start at third base next year.
Sure.
Maybe it's a platoon with Adonis. Malix, I believe that they're going to trade Nick Markakis in the offseason, and Malix is going to go to left, and they're going to move Kemp back to his natural position at right, in right field. None of the pitchers are really ready. Sean Newcomb, I think, is the closest, but he'll, I would imagine, start in AAA next year because he started to have a lot of success in AA, but I don't think any of the pitchers are close. Not sure what will happen with Aaron Blair. It'll be nice to see what he does this week and see if he rebounds from his last start. I mean, Blair and Whistler, they will certainly vie for positions in the starting rotation, but I think they're the only young guys we'll see, although I think that Fulte is guaranteed a spot next year.
So you mentioned that you thought that Nick Markakis will be traded. Are there any other players, any other moves the Braves might make this offseason?
Well, Coppy has come out and said that their main goals this offseason are to upgrade a catcher and to get at least 2 starting pitchers. So, which I think is great, right? If you get some real starting pitching in here and the offense can be even, 75% of what it's been since August, I think that the Braves could really exceed expectations and maybe even be better than a 500 team next year. I'm not sure what that catcher position is really going to look like. There's not a lot out there. There's been a lot of talk about McCann, and maybe they bring McCann in and platoon him with Flowers or something like that. But Tyler Flowers, aside from not being able to throw anybody out, has actually been pretty decent offensively, and I would say that the pitchers like throwing to him. He's calling good games. So, maybe that direction around the catcher changes some, and they really just focus on starting pitching.
So is there an under-the-radar prospect, like one that's not exactly that highly rated, but one that you think might have a chance to be a legitimate MLB player soon?
Well, I think that some guys like Austin Riley, we may see sooner than later. Some of the other pitching, like Lucas Sims, could break into the rotation at some point. But you got to remember, most of what they did to rebuild the farm system, the guys are so young. The pitchers are so young. I mean, guys like Touki Toussaint, who really took off, Max Fried, who really took off. These are the guys that anchored the single A rotation. I mean, they're a few years away. The help is really coming in 18 or 19 from the rebuild of the farm system. It's not going to be next year.
So you think 2018 we can start expecting to contend for a playoff spot?
I think 2019 is probably more reasonable because the starting pitching is really going to be here by then, but I don't think 2018 is out of the question. It kind of depends on Dansby's progression and Ozzy's progression, assuming he comes up at some point. I assume he's going to come up sort of mid-year next year. I do think that the season starts with, I guess, Jace at second base, which is, not the greatest, but, unless they go out and get some sort of veteran second baseman, to, bridge the gap between, now and the time that Albies is ready. I think that we just need to see how these guys progress next year. Malik's too, and if Rio gets in there, and we will learn a lot next year in terms of how 18 can look.
What do you think is the best trade the Braves have made this year?
The best trade that the Braves made when?
This year. 2016.
This year. Gosh, it's kind of amazing. The one this week. I mean, on September, whatever it was, 27th.
Right.
To get anything for Gordon Beckham when he's not even eligible for the postseason. I mean, it's just kind of remarkable what Coffey does. I was not in favor of the Kemp Oliveira trade. I think you just cut your losses because really they just doubled down on the money spent, right? Now, I know it sort of looks silly now. It seems that Kemp has really helped the lineup, and the guys really like him, and, he's all very committed to the team. We'll see how he plays out next year. I think that, the Beckham trade was just amazing to get anything at this point.
Yeah, and Coppy's made a bunch of good trades. I mean, you could think back to the Shelby Miller trade as well as probably one of his best trades he's ever made.
Oh, well, the Shelby Miller trade is going to go down
right
as one of the most lopsided trades in a very, very long time. There's no doubt about it. What's your favorite trade this year?
This year?
Yeah.
I actually like the Kemp Oliveira trade. I know that we had to pay more money for that one, but especially now in hindsight, looking back at what Kemp has brought to the table, I think it's been one of the reasons the Braves have done so well the past few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with it. I mean, his numbers were not good coming in. The guy doesn't look good in left field, although he has improved over the last few weeks and not a high OBP guy. I mean, his numbers since he got here have been better than his 2016 numbers were before he arrived. I mean, I'll hand it to him. He's performed better than the back of his baseball card said he would, and, even copies, very public sort of shaming of him and his weight and all of that stuff. I mean, he has been what seems like a great teammate, and, he's you can't, like I said, you can't argue with what the lineup's doing.
Which Brave have you enjoyed watching the most this year?
Which Brave have I enjoyed watching the most this year? I'd have to say Inciarte. I mean, not only do you get the Gold Glove play from him in the outfield, but the offense that he's bringing to the table. Once he, came back from the injury in the beginning of the year and sort of had his spring training during the regular season and then just turned it on. I mean, his numbers have been incredible. Yeah, I mean, Inciarte has become one of my favorites.
Yeah, I agree there.
How about you?
Yeah, I would agree with you there. He has done well, and it's fun to watch.
I mean, we have a center fielder. It's amazing to have that kind of defense behind, especially behind the young pitching that we're going to have. It's great to have strong defense up the middle, and he's amazing. I mean, he's the best guy we've had up there since Andrew.
Yeah, and then Andrelton Simmons was fun to watch, but since we got rid of him, we've been looking for that next guy. And I think he fills the void.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was listening to the radio broadcast, that is, a couple days ago, and Jim Powell actually referred to Inciarte as the Andrelton Simmons of center field.
Yeah, you can compare the two defensively.
Yeah, no, Inciarte is one of the best in the game right now. There's no doubt about it.
Just a couple more questions. Who do you think will be the manager for 2017? Do you think Snitker's proved himself enough, or do you think they'll be looking elsewhere?
I think it's got to be Snitker. I mean, the players have been publicly campaigning for him in the paper and in post-game interviews for weeks now. They've obviously overachieved. I mean, it just seems like silly to not give Snitker the job at this point. If nothing else, you've got such strong team chemistry going on. You've got a team looking like they're playing for a playoff spot when they're, 25 games out, or whatever it is that they are. I just don't know how the front office doesn't give it to Snitker at this point.
Yeah, I would agree there. We talked about it a few weeks ago, I think, here on the show, but he's really done a great job. You can't argue with that. With what he has.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I mean, there's Joe Madden and there's Bruce Bochy and then there's everybody else, right? I don't think that managers affect and swing that many wins and losses unless, you're sort of the top of the heap guys, right? So otherwise you just need to keep a good clubhouse, have the respect of your players, get the guys playing hard for you, and he's doing all that. Tonight on the pregame show, they had Bobby Cox on, and he was very strongly politicking for Snitker. And Bobby's one of the brain trusts still. I mean, he's helping make a lot of decisions, and so I think that given the fact that Bobby's coming out publicly like that, is a big indication that he'll be back next year.
Who do you like heading into the 2016 postseason? We got the Cubs in first place. It seems like what else can be surprising this year? Who do you have to win the World Series?
I think it will be the Cubs and the Rangers in the World Series. And I think that, I think that the Cubs will win it. My only concern, if Arrieta was as dominant and otherworldly as he was last year, then I would say it with 100% confidence. But Lester has gotten that good. I mean, Lester's been just ridiculous especially the second half of the year. So I think that I think that the Cubs will take it. Who do you have in the World Series?
Well, I'd love to see the Cubs win the World Series. It hasn't happened in forever. So I'd be rooting for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just for to see Hayward and David
right.
Ross. And we've got some old guys on the team too, and that would just be fun as well.
How can fans connect with you?
Well, they can follow us on Twitter. We are at ATL Baseball Talk, and of course, listen to the podcast. We're on iTunes and Stitcher and Blog Talk Radio. We drop a show every Sunday night around 10:30 or 11. We also have a Facebook page. So yeah, we're out there.
Well, we really enjoyed talking to you today. So thank you very much, and we hope to talk to you again soon.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks. Happy to come on again.
That was some great stuff from Steve Epstein. Again, he's the founder of Atlanta Baseball Talk. You can find him on his website, atlantabaseballtalk.com. So we're going to move on to some football now. It is the fall still. Baseball season is officially over for us Atlanta Braves fans. There's always the off-season transactions. That'll be interesting to see what we do there. But moving on to the Falcons, they beat the Carolina Panthers today, 48-33 in the Georgia Dome. Matt Ryan had one of his career days, 28 for 37, 503 yards, 4 passing touchdowns, and 1 interception. He was a great fantasy player if you had him on a fantasy team today. I think it was the franchise record for the most passing yards in one game. Again, that was 503 yards. And they had a good day. I know I've been talking about how good their offense could be this year, and they have really been showing it recently. 48 points against it's a good Carolina defense. Most people would agree. Last week they scored 45 points against the Saints. Falcons are coming around offensively. If their defense can hold up and the defense can get a little better, there's no telling what they could happen. Devontae Freeman also added 13 carries, 57 yards, and a touchdown. Tevin Coleman, 8 for 19. So the rushing attack was not as good as it possibly could have been. But again, rushing the ball in the NFL is not as common as it is in college. You need to be able to throw the ball. And the Falcons have proven they could do that. Julio Jones had an insane day. If Matt Ryan had a good day, Julio Jones had a great day. 12 catches, 300 yards of receiving. That was one of the reasons the Falcons were so good today. 300 yards from any receiver. Julio Jones has maybe just solidified his spot as one of, if not the best receiver in the NFL. Keanu Neal, one other note about him, 9 total tackles. He was a team leader. It looks like he has recovered nicely from his knee injury, which he suffered earlier this year. And we can look for him to increase his role and to be a team leader from here on out. Also, Cam Newton left the game with a confirmed concussion. I don't know the seriousness of the injury, and I'm sure you don't either. By the time you're listening to this, you might. But the Falcons, they gave up 378 yards of offense. A lot of it was Cam Newton, and they slowed down a little bit once he got out of the game. But they need to work on their defense as well. They gave up a lot of points in the fourth quarter. The good news is they did have 571 total yards of offense. That is just insane. That is great news for Falcons fans. It's awesome that they can do that. The turnover battle, they won that 2-1. That's not also key in winning the game. And just 31-10 after the third quarter, I'm thinking, okay, the Falcons got this. They're all good. I'm a little surprised at this point as well because I didn't think the game was going to be a blowout. Then the Falcons almost blew it. It came within 34-26. Then later on it was 41-33. They gave up 23 points in the fourth quarter. And then Robert Alford clinched it with a 30-yard pick six. So it was great for the pick six, but the Falcons need to work on the defense and need to slow the other team down. Like I said earlier, if this defense can get it together, the Falcons will have a very good team. So we're going to move on to some college football. We're going to start off with Georgia. And that was the heartbreaker. Georgia lost 31-34, as you may have heard. I think the win probability for Tennessee was something like 0.0023 or something, I thought I saw somewhere. Tennessee throws a last-second Hail Mary. Joshua Dobbs heaves it up, and it's caught in the end zone with 5 Georgia guys around it and 1 Tennessee player. everybody was behind the receiver. The receiver stepped in front and made a good catch. Eason, 17 for 28, 211 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also threw 1 interception. He is showing poise and confidence. He still has a long way to go, but it's nice to see him, especially that long pass to Riley Ridley. He fit it right between 2 defenders. It was a beautiful pass. It's good to see he can drive the team down the field. You need to work on the defense again. Georgia and the Falcons, they have something in common. Sony Michel took up the workload because Nick Chubb was out with a sprained ankle. Hopefully he can be back next week. Michel was 16 for 91 with 1 touchdown. Isaac Nada also he was a leading receiver. He had a big day yesterday. 5 catches, 81 yards, and a touchdown. Then also Riley Ridley. It's good to see the freshman getting involved here for the Georgia Bulldogs. Riley Ridley, 2 catches, 59 yards, and the go-ahead touchdown that should have been the winning touchdown. Also, the kicking situation. Rodrigo Blankenship was a starting kicker again. 1-for-1 field goals. He had a 127-yard field goal, and he was 4 for 4 extra points. That's the good news. The Georgia kickers haven't missed extra points, I don't think, at all this year. They missed the field goals, but the extra points have been solid, which is at least a starting point. Next week, the Bulldogs have to go to South Carolina. It's a night game, I think, so that'll be a tough game, tougher than most people think. It's probably going to be a good time for South Carolina to get a win. So Georgia will have to be on their toes, but I think the Dogs will take care of it next week. Georgia Tech, they lost to Miami 21-35. They had 39 minutes of possession time offensively, yet they only scored 21 points, and Miami's high-powered offense scored 35 points in just 21 minutes. Tech had 267 total yards rushing and 94 yards passing. So again, typical option style. They had almost triple the amount of rushing yards they did passing. Justin Thomas was 11 for 19 with 94 passing yards, all 94 of them. 1 touchdown and 1 interception. Dietrich Mills, 19 for 99 yards rushing. He was the leading rusher. He also scored 2 touchdowns. Clinton Lynch, 4 for 58, 4 carries, 58 yards. And then Marcus Marshall, 4 carries, 34 yards. And then J.J. Green, the Georgia transfer, 5 carries, 40 yards. And then Justin Thomas had 15 carries for only 7 yards, which is not as good as he has usually done for the Yellow Jackets this year. Next week, they're at Pitt. So I think that'll be a tough game as well. We'll have to see how that one goes. Jackets are in need of a win again. They need to get at least another ACC win. They had the one against Boston College, but it's about time. Just some other notes on the game. Mike Rick did a good job stopping the run. He's always has, whether he was at Georgia. I think he's 9-0 at Bobby Dodd Stadium. Tech needs to find a way to utilize the time they have. They've done a great job keeping the ball. They need to utilize the time they have and not have any stalled drives. And Tech needs to find a way to keep the drives going, just finish them off, because they've got the ball a lot and they're holding on to it, but it does no good if you don't score any points. Georgia Southern was off. They have a game at Arkansas State October 5th. They're coming off of a loss against Western Michigan. They lost, I think it was 31-49. They should win this one. The Eagles are 3-1. Arkansas State is 0-4. So this looks like it's prime condition for yet another Georgia Southern win. We'll have to wait and see. Georgia State lost to Appalachian State 17-3. The offense continued to struggle. Connor Manning, 19 for 44 passing. He had 153 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. Kyler Neal, 12 carries, 46 yards. The entire team had only 88 yards rushing. And then Robert Davis had 5 catches for 57 yards. You know, the rushing attack has got to get going. 88 yards, we've been talking about it all year. I don't think they've gone over 100 yards, maybe once or twice. But anyway, Georgia State is 0-4. They need a win. They get Texas State at home next week, which it'll be a good game. They need to take a win. If you remember last year, they were 2-4, and then they won 4 in a row. They got to get to 2-4 this year in order to have a shot at winning any of their games, and enough of the games to get to a bowl game. They lost the turnover ratio. They only forced 1 turnover, and as I mentioned, Connor Manning had 4 interceptions. They had 241 total yards of offense, which was the difference. They didn't score enough points. Obviously, they scored 3. They didn't get a single touchdown. They held the game close for a while. It was 0-0. The defense was doing a great job, But the lack of offense eventually gave in. Their defense was tired in the fourth quarter. You can't hold a team scoreless forever. Well, you can, but it's very tough to hold a team scoreless forever. And in the fourth quarter, they ended up giving up 361 total yards, which is a lot, but most of them came in the fourth quarter. They only gave up 17 points. You expected if you give up 17 points, you'd at least be in the game. And Georgia State was for the most part, but at the end, it just wasn't enough. Kennesaw State. They beat Furman. They went up to Greenville, South Carolina. They beat Furman 52-42. They started extremely well. 35-0 at one point. It was 49-14 at halftime. So by then, most of the starters are getting their well-earned rest, and Kennesaw State's looking like they have it in the bag. But then Furman comes roaring back. They scored 21 points in the third quarter, then added another 7 in the fourth, but it wasn't enough as they only ended up with 42 points. Chandler Burks, 9 for 12, 171 yards, 1 touchdown. The team had 393 rushing yards, which is good. Again, they're more of an option offense, so that's what you would expect, but they did a very good job. Daniel Holland, 6 carries, 123 yards. He was a leading rusher. He also scored 2 touchdowns. And Chandler Burks, the quarterback, he had 27 carries. He had 103 yards and 3 touchdowns. Then lots of other guys got some action in the game. They split up the carries among them. But like I said, 393 rushing yards, that's a lot. Justin Sumter was the leading receiver, 6 receptions, 147 yards, and a touchdown. And like I said, Kennesaw State started strong, 21 points in the first quarter, 28 points in the second quarter, then slowed it down the second half, and then only scored the field goal in the fourth quarter. So they had 567 total yards of offense. They did give up 455, which might be a reason to concern for most Owls fans. They did win the turnover margin. They forced 4 and didn't have a single turnover, which is huge. If you can win the turnover margin by that much every game, you're going to have a shot, or more than a chance, to win the ball game. So defensively is their issue. Again, it was an issue with the Falcons. It might be a common problem inside the state of Georgia that defense needs work. But we'll have to wait and see as the season goes on if that will continue to be the problem for most of these teams. Once again, I'd like to thank you for listening to the Atlanta Sports Podcasts. You can find us on iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play. Make sure to leave us a review. Tell us how we're doing. You can give us a rating there. You can also send us an email. Our email address is on our website. You can comment on any of our podcasts or anywhere there. You can also reach out to us on Twitter at ATL Sportscast. And we would hope to see you next week with another show.